Imagine this. A guest asks ChatGPT where to stay, and instead of a list of links, they get a recommendation with an ad and a direct booking option. This week, that stopped being hypothetical. Welcome back to the check-in.
Boris, my friend, how are you?
Doing great. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Boris, thanks for popping in and joining us this week. You posted earlier this week on LinkedIn, ads are arriving on ChatGPT. And in this example from ChatGPT, direct bookings, a villa is given as an example. So clearly, this means the stakes are pretty high right now for the industry. Of course, this could be nothing, but this could have fundamental changes to how the industry operates. So before we go deep, Boris, tell us exactly what we're looking at here.
Right. Well, for a lot of people out there, it's been a long time coming. Ads arriving into ChatGPT, they have to find a way to monetize this huge customer base, 700 million weekly active users, if not even more. So what's happening is that ads are arriving on the free tier and on the gold tier of ChatGPT. They would pop up below the conversation. They would not be in line with the conversation. So don't expect these ads to be actual recommendations from ChatGPT. That's very important. And it's part of their ad principles that they posted alongside the news, that the answers of the AI will not be influenced by ads. So that's first and foremost, that's super important, keeping the chatbot very honest. Let's put it this way, keeping it honest. We don't know how exactly you can take advantage as a business to be featured on these ads yet. They're just going to roll out, I'm assuming, with some partners that they currently have. Probably Booking and Expedia are going to be part of the partners that are going to participate in this initial rollout of the testing in the US. That's where ads are starting out. So we don't have a lot of information as it is right now on the workings of these ads, but they're coming and it's been expected. It's not a huge surprise. What I'm particularly excited about, though, is that they say in the announcement itself that this could be a game changer for small businesses. And as you said, Leo, they give an example with hospitality. Is the favorite type, for example, of any AI company these days. They love giving travel as an example. So there is an example there of a potential direct booking. So that's what got me excited, and that's why I posted about it.
Yeah, I'm curious from your perspective as well, Boris, is this going to be embedded inside the conversation flow? Or is it going to be really clear that this is sort of an ad? It sounds like it's going to be pretty clear it's an ad. But then I guess the follow-on question is how is that different from traditional Google ads and meta search? And where is it similar?
Right. Well, it will be very much like a separate thing within the chat. It's going to be below the conversation. But remember, when Google introduced ads in search, they were also very clearly distinguishable. And these days, there is just like a tiny little label saying sponsored. You can barely distinguish a search result, an organic search result, from an ad. So I wouldn't be surprised that 1 or 2 years down the line, we get these ads a bit more inconspicuous within ChatGPT. But let's think about how they compare. So you have a couple of types of advertising. You can advertise on social media, you can advertise in search, Google, and now you'll be able to advertise in ChatGPT. Social media is to a large extent impressions. They have a huge audience there that they monetize and you get your brand out there, but it's very difficult to track your intent on social media unless they're listening in on our phones, which they do, but that's another story. So on social media, it's more brands winning. That's where Airbnb wins. Then we move to Google. Google, you have intent, but intent through keywords. We type some keywords into Google that determines our intent, but it's not very specific. Let's say we want to travel to Japan. So Google knows we want to travel to Japan, but Google doesn't know if we are more interested in flights or accommodation or who are we traveling with. They just have this general idea of our intent. Now, moving on to ChatGPT, intent becomes contextualized. What does that mean? ChatGPT knows everything about you. ChatGPT knows if you have a family, who you're traveling to, whether you stay at short-term rentals or you prefer hotels. And you'd already be researching with ChatGPT the destination. So it will have a lot more context of what you want to do. So it could deliver an ad which is perfectly targeted to your intent. Just to give you some numbers here, according to one study, Conversion on Google is about 1.6% on Google Ads. Conversion on ChatGPT, so you talk to ChatGPT and based on that conversation, you go and you buy something, is 16%. That's 8 times more because of this context. That's what I'm excited about, actually, because we can now, we have a new frontier to do advertising on, and it's an untested new ground, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for small businesses out there.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I like that stat as well of the conversion on ChatGPT, and I'm sure it's similar on other LLMs. Explain to us how you think this could disrupt the OTA model, because clearly the obvious thing to say is that we know OTAs have very deep pockets when it comes to marketing. So there's an argument to be said that they can ensure that their sponsored content comes up first. But tell us where you think the opportunity lies for small businesses and why you're excited.
I believe the opportunity lies with the fact that we can really hype up an individual property and provide a lot of information about that property within, let's say, our direct booking website, or somehow transfer it programmatically to the LLM. And that additional information that doesn't fit within, especially booking.com, if we look at booking.com, it's very, very limited information that they have about the property outside of their template. So if we can plug this in the LLM, we can correspond much better to the context of the user. What do I mean? We can give a lot of information about our property, which would match with a user, ChatGPT user, looking exactly for our property. And then we can pay, we would be happy to pay up to 15%, right? Because that's what we pay the OTAs. And think about the OTA unit economics. They spent 5% out of the 15, so about a third of their revenue is being spent on advertising. So they will be willing to pay 5% to ChatGPT. We will be willing to pay 15% to ChatGPT. Even if you pay 10, we're still better off, and we still have more bargaining power than the OTAs. Now, OTAs win on supply. They have a lot of supply. So when the intent is not perfectly clear, as in we're putting keywords on Google, we don't know exactly where we're going. Google doesn't know exactly where we're going. So Google can't serve the exact perfect accommodation for us, right? It just serves a bunch. And that's when having more supply is more important. But in ChatGPT, having the right kind of supply, having the perfect property to match with the intent of the user, that's what's going to win. That's what's going to appear as an ad. That's at least my thesis. So as long as we prepare to be able to provide a lot of information regarding our properties, I think we can win. I think, we can
I
win.
like that. I think it's really interesting. The idea that you're right, that an OTA can't spend all its budgets on marketing, whereas you give all of your, you give that 15% away readily to the OTA, so you can reinvest that. Smart. And then you're catching your own fish, right? So you've got your own fishing net for next time, growing your business. Yeah, I think there's a lot of sense in what you're saying. We're talking about going much heavier on the detail in a listing and building a very smart website. What other tips would you give people? Is backlinking through blogs important? What else would you say is important to get that kind of like authenticity?
Well, backlinking has always been important, but I think the obvious thing is invest in your own direct booking website, and not just a direct booking website. Invest in explaining the property, invest in the listing. The listing itself is going to become a lot more important than your brand as a property manager, because the listing will give all that information to the LLM, which will then determine whether it matches the user's request. So the more information we have, structured information, again, that's not something that we should just paste pages of content regarding our beachside villa on the listing. No, it needs to be structured information. Who is it for? Who is it for? It's becoming extremely important section, and you should have that section. Who is this property for? It's for families, young families with that many children, etc., etc. So pick a niche and make this property suitable for a very, very specific type of guest, and post that within the listing. Make that very easily readable. I'm jumping from one part to the other, but these are just things that come to mind right now. Think of how you would chat to ChatGPT when you're looking for a place to stay. And every time you ask a question, you give a requirement to ChatGPT, think of it how this translates into a section within your listing on your website. And even on Airbnb. I mean, you could use Airbnb as another portal to advertise your property, as long as you have the same name on Airbnb and on your direct booking website. Title of the listing should be the same. Most of the things should be the same, so that people can, and LLMs can find you directly.
Yeah, and is it enough, I guess, just to add these things in the description? And is that going to be part of the strategy? So imagine you're actually buying ads, let's say from ChatGPT. What are the things that are going to matter in that ad? Or is there going to be an indexing? I'm just so curious, like how, because obviously the context I have is Google and Google AdWords, and so it's all based on keyword search and things like this. So how is this going to change the way that we view marketing?
Well, we don't know that yet, Sarah. I mean, I wish I could give you a straight up answer, but we haven't seen the process of even like applying to become an advertiser on ChatGPT. I'm assuming though that OpenAI will get a bit more creative with their ads and a bit more interactive. In the example itself that they posted in the news article announcing ads, in the travel related example, there is a way for you to message the property. So there is a way for you to interact with the ads, which is new. They need to innovate. They need to innovate a little bit. They cannot just use Google's playbook or social media playbooks. They need to innovate, and I think that's a great way of making ads interactive. So you see the ad, you see this cottage, and then you have a bunch of questions, and you start asking the ad questions about the cottage. How many bedrooms are there? How many bathrooms are there? And then it's ChatGPT that's going to answer you, but you would be getting the information straight there within the conversation within ChatGPT without leaving ChatGPT. OTAs won't be happy with that. You know why? Because OTAs count on you going to the OTA and then opening 10 tabs so that you can, choose between 10 different properties. And choice is extremely important with OTAs. Choice becomes less important when the LLM has the whole context and knows exactly what to serve you and keeps you within the chat. So it's all very exciting. And I really hope that what they say, what OpenAI said, I'm going to quote that because it's super important. I have it up here. So ads, okay, I lost it. Yeah, there it is. Ads also can be transformative for small businesses and emerging brands trying to compete. That's a direct quote. And that's what really got me excited.
Boris, I love that. Thank you so much for popping in. We know this is an evolving situation. We'll call on you, I'm sure, in a couple of months to keep talking about it or give us a refresh. And until then, we're just going to keep waiting with bated breath about the idea of being able to interact with our ad, right? So from going to ad to agent, I think it's very exciting. Thanks so much, Boris. And to everyone else at home, if you've enjoyed today's show, please hit like, share, subscribe, and all the usual places. And we'll see you again very soon. Thank you.